Salt. It's one of the very principal items that is needed in our health and in life. And if you get too little, it's harmful. If you get too much, it's harmful. And the Christian today, he wants the Christian to be salty. That's not normal. You got to have some sugar too. You can't have too much sugar. You can't have enough sugar. You got to have a saltiness to your preaching. Now, in the Bible, salt was, I believe it was 39 times. In Genesis 19:36, when his wife, that's Lot's wife, looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Now, that's rebellion because the angel told them, get away from Sodom and don't look back. A lot of Christians look back. And if this application would be put to the church today, there'd be a lot of pillars of salt. Listen, salt, if put on a wound, burns. Salt is for healing. And sometimes, you don't like that salt. I come from where we had a saltwater lake, river and all that. We would soak in the, we had poison ivy or we had a sore, we would soak in it. We would come home and soak in Epsom salt in the tub or regular table salt. But she disobeyed the word of God. And there was a reaction, a judgment, just like Eve. She was told not to eat the fruit. She ate the fruit. Sin. They were told not to look back. Death. In Leviticus 2:13, every oblation, every offering of thy meat offering shall thou season with salt. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy God be lacking from the meat offering. In all offerings thou shalt offer salt. Again, Mark 9:49. For everyone shall be salted with fire. Every sacrifice shall be salted with salt. So God says, as far as not too much salt. I mean, I got kidney disease. I've got renal failure. If I don't do dialysis, I'm dead. I am to watch my salt intake because it could make it worse. High blood pressure, which is one of the things that happens with kidney disease, but high blood pressure, you got to watch your salt. You're not to have too much salt. Salt will cause death. Lot's wife got too much salt. But God sacrificed. He says, listen, I don't want that salt. And he says in Mark, you're to be salt with salt. You're not to give people this lovey-dovey, how you doing kind of message. You're to give them the gospel of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. No way are we told to hold signs against abortion, though abortion is wrong. Though we are not told to hold signs for political candidate, we are to hold signs for the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Without Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life, you're going to hell. And some people don't like that. Listen, I found in my life with street ministries and everything on street preaching, I find that Christians hate that. You put a little salt on them, and they scream out. In Job 6:6, can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Job says, you know what? You put something down in front of me, french fries or something, I got to have some salt. Or it's not delicious. So Job is saying, you can have your salt and eat it too. Science says, not too much. Science says, not too little. Job says, man, if it needs some taste, put some salt. Matthew 5:13. Now, there's no church in Matthew 5:13. There's no death, burial, and resurrection, Matthew 5. Ye are the salt of the earth. That's not written to Christians. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall ye be salted? It's henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. So salt can lose its value. And then you just throw it out. Throw it out in the dirt. There are Christians today. That salt is not the saltiness of the King James 1611 Bible. You're thrown out. You're no good. You don't taste good. If you give everybody love and turn the other cheek, which is Bible, and some people don't give enough of that. If you don't have, on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being nothing, and 10 being way too much, if you're not living a biblical 5, not a 4, not a 6, no, a medium. You give them the proper salt, you give them the proper sugar. Toss you out. A church that's too salty is hard and gives a uniqueness of what Christianity is not. Oh, you got to follow rules and regulations like religion. And a church that's too sugary, it's just. You ever sat down to have a plate of this sugar? I have. My years of growing up as a child, or putting all the sugar in the cereal and then just having that sugary milk. Yeah, okay. For the first couple of spoonfuls may taste good. You sure don't want to try that with sugar. Mark 9:50, salt is good, but if salt has lost its saltiness, wherewith shall ye season it? Have salt in yourselves and have peace one another. So have the salt and have peace. Don't be a sugary Christian. Don't be a salty Christian. Luke 7:32, remember Lot's wife. So as a Christian, look back. What happened to Lot and his wife? The angels came. Sodom in Genesis 13 says they're just a wicked people. They're involved in sodomy. And the angels told Lot and his family, get out of this city and don't look back. We are told as Christians, get out of the world. You're not part of the world. You are not to be unevenly yoked together with unbelievers. Get out of that world and live in the world, but don't be the world. And that's a failure today in Christianity. So if you go like the world and you look back and you're dead. You're not doing anything for Christ. After Lot turned into salt on his wife, she was it. That's it. She's dead. All right, she may stand. I mean, they say there's these 2 pillars. But, I mean, you can go over there to the real pillar. Okay, I can learn the lesson. I'm to obey God. I can learn the lesson. Don't look back. It ain't worth it. Her family died. It was a violent death of fire and brimstone. Colossians 4:6, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man. Seasoned with salt. Now, as a street preacher, I have been accused that, I'm just salty, I'm just mean, no, that's how they take the message. That's how the message is brought in unsaved, worldly, carnal minds. You have no love. Yeah, I do. I wouldn't be preaching on the street. You don't care. I wouldn't be telling you how to get saved. The ones that don't care are the ones that don't say nothing or buy into this, turn the other cheek and all the other nonsense. I mean, nonsense is you're not telling them the truth. James 3:12. By the way, it says, you may know how to ought to answer every man. You are ought to give everybody a biblical answer, if they're going to like it or not. Everybody needs a pretzel with an answer. A pretzel is a pastry that has salt on it, usually kosher salt. I know people put black pepper in their French fries, and that's okay, but you gotta have a little salt. James 3:12. Can the fig tree bear, brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh water. You can't get spring water from a saltwater source. There's a difference. It is humanly impossible for a man to survive on salt water. He causes his body, the water, to dehydrate. And many unhealthy things happen. So, those things about salt. In ancient Rome, salt was so precious that it was occasionally used as a pace soldiers. The Latin word salt, which means, sal, the Latin word sal, S-A-L, which means salt, is actually where the term salary originates. When they came up with the phrase, not worth his salary, or not worth his salt. So when you were paid salt, or sal, and you didn't deserve it, you weren't worth it. So when you get paid, and my salary is, you got to remember salt. I'm to be a salty Christian with a being to be merciful, kind, and gentle, and loving. The dangers that pose that many people are aware of sodium, the name of salt, is cutting back on the sodium consumption. Bread and cured meats and canned soup are in processed foods that account for 75% of the sodium contents or consumed by Americans. All right, you might be, okay, my doctor says my health, I'm going to be sodium conscious. But there's things that you're buying and cooking contain much salt, too much. There may be books and tapes and things you're listening to. It's just got too much Bible. It's too hard. And there may be books that are just too too sugary, too weak. Now, salt will help muscles function, enable neurons to send messages, and make it easier for nutrients and oxygen to be transported. So there is a benefit to salt, and there is a no benefit of salt. There is a benefit to what Christians say, right? And there are no benefits to sometimes what Christians say no. Now, sometimes as a Christian, you're going to be salt right, and then you're going to be salt wrong. Is it James that says about the tongue, you can't tame it? It's either going to come out salty or it's going to come out sweetly. Sodium chloride makes up majority of minerals known as salt. It is more properly known as table salt, which can be found particularly in graduated rock salt, highlight, and other names for salt that are commonly as crystalline, mineral. And it's one of the most common, oldest food seasoning. Salt goes all the way back to the time of Lot. And that's not too far from Adam. Now you may get edema in your hands and feet. This is result in increased water retention. You may weigh more than normal. One of the things that with my kidney failure was my legs began to block, get to swell. And when you start seeing your body start swelling, when you're out of weight, that just tells you right there something's wrong. So salt is something that precautions you there's something wrong, whether right or wrong. And it's found in the Bible. Remember, James says, be seasoned with salt. James did not say, dine with salt. And additionally, eating a meal high in salt may increase the volume of blood that passes through your arteries and your blood vessels, which could be brief increase of blood pressure. Now your blood pressure's high. That ain't healthy. High blood pressure. And eating a salty meal makes you feel extremely thirsty or dry mouth, which urges you to drink more. Now, as a person that has kidney disease, I am limited to how much I'm supposed to intake. But it's funny, if you take a soda can or bottle and you look at the ingredients, one of those ingredients you can find there is it's salt. Why is salt added to a carbonated drink? It's sweet, but there's salt in it. It makes you drink more. I'm talking about right now, and I'm getting a salty taste in my mouth. But my body says, okay, give it to me. To support nerve impulses, controlled bodily process include heart rate, digestion, breathing, brain activity, and blood pressure. Our bodies require electrolytes. Sodium adds controlling neuron and muscle function as well as a fluid balance within surrounding cells and fluid in the blood. Now, dialysis, connected to my heart, they remove fluid, which my body cannot process fully. And I got to go 3 times, 3.5 hours a week to have this fluid that remove off me that my body cannot do anymore. So when you got the improper balance of a chemical, sodium, table salt, you got to start doing things you don't want to do. No one wants to say, oh yeah, dialysis. I have come to the conclusion, and I've been on dialysis since September, I hate dialysis. But I thank the Lord he's got dialysis and people who know how to run dialysis to keep me living. Listen, I got a wonderful daughter. I got a wonderful God. I got a great church. I want to live for them. Another thing is grease fires can be extinguished using salt, just like baking soda. You don't put water on a grease fire. Though we had a fire like that here at this house, and that's the only thing I had. That's the only thing I thought at the moment. But you don't. And you got to realize, okay, I got salt. In someone's life, if I want to put the hellfire out of them, I don't want them to burn anymore. I got to use salt. Don't go running there with a sugary message. That ain't going to do nothing. Salt is good for stopping burns and fires. Salt can also be helped to treat a bee sting. I don't know how, but that's what they say. So salt has its health reasoning. So you can't say no salt. No, 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 no. You can't say that. Like you say sin, no sin. No fornication, no adultery. No. What about telling a lie? Well, there's a couple of lies in the Bible that are when the men from Israel came into Jericho. She told them, "I don't know where they are." There was another time when the men of Israel they hid in a well, and she put the cover on them. I don't know where they are. Again, it's a feature that is found on tables, and it's hidden in everyday objects. You may be eating tons of salt and don't even realize it. Now, it's suggested that the daily recommendation is 1.5 or was that 1,500 milligrams or 1.5 grams a day, just over a half teaspoon of salt a day. Don't sit down and have a half a teaspoon of salt on your egg, and then on your your soup at lunch, then your French fries at dinner, and then your popcorn at lunch. No, 1.5 a tablespoon teaspoon a day. Kosher salt is large, coarser, and flakier crystals. It's less refined, and it has additives like iodine, which you need for your body to run properly, and your thyroid. And it comes from the name of the process with processed meat for Jewish people, kosher. Sea salt is made by evaporating sea or the ocean water. As the water evaporates away, the salt crystals are left behind. And that has different colors. So salt can be white, it can be pink, it can come from underground, it can come from bodies of water. If you're going to preach the gospel message, it doesn't where or who it comes from, as long as it's the gospel message. I mean, when I see or hear a street preacher, when I'm going to my Facebook or YouTube video, I say, Lord, if they're preaching the gospel, help them and bless them. Because I don't know I'm not going to sit there and listen to them. Some of them I don't. But I want to make sure that what they're preaching is the gospel. I don't pray for people who sit outside abortion clinics. Now, yes, abortion is murder, but that's not the time. When you're dealing with lost people, you got to deal with their souls. And as far as abortion, that would not be assault. That would be a salt substitute. Again, you got to put things down where they belong. Salt is essentially used in production of chemicals like chloride, plastics, paper, and hosts of other products, and road de-icing and water softener. So when you go and say, okay, I'm not going to cut back on the salt, and I'm not going to have that much salt. Yeah, but what about the products you're using? That water bottle you're drinking from has salt made in it. And I'm looking now in the ingredients of this one. It just says, where's it come from? They even got water where they put salt in it. Now, the pillar of salt of Lot's wife is located near the Dead Sea at Mount Sodom in Israel. And one is shown to tourists across the Dead Sea in the Jordan, not far from the ruins of Byzantine monastery of St. Lot. So there are two locations. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over Jerusalem. I'm going to see, the things where Jesus walked. Not what the Catholics are telling you. They're wrong. They don't know their Bible. You're going to get a Muslim or Arabian tell you what the Bible says. They don't believe the Bible. That's why I tell people, well, don't you want to go to Jerusalem? Yeah, I will when Jesus brings me. And I'll let Jesus show me where everything is. Because someone may peddle off on me the wrong location where Lot is and his wife. So you don't want the wrong salt. Now, the ancient Egypt used the salt for mummification. They believed it preserved bodies for the afterlife. And it is abundant in our waters, oceans, 3.5%. Now, that's a small number when you really think about it. Do you ever actually go swimming in the river or the ocean and get a mouthful of salt water? Man, that ain't salty. You got to blow it out. And that's only 3.5%. That's not a lot. It don't take much to get the saltiness. It don't take much, Christian, for you to sound so judgmental, so hellfire in preaching, which I am for, but you can overdo it. If you go back and look at my street videos, you'll see that I get up and preach. Yes, I preach loud. The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Hell, heaven, sins, good people go to hell. Against religions. Now, religions, with the verification we have of salt, there's a lot of different kinds of salt. I mean, there's two kinds of Lot's wife. But also, with religions, there's a different type of salt out there. You can go and get artificial salt, a salt substitute. That's religion. You got to have the pure salt of God, which is Jesus Christ. As Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. I don't know what the salt substitute names are, but you're not going to approach God with a little salt packet that's not God. And that's what people try to do with religions. Sodium, table salt, kosher salt, sea salt is needed in every human's dietary means. And there are some churches, there are some Christians that their salt level is so minimized. They're not healthy because they're not getting enough salt. There are some religions, there are some churches, there are some Christians out there that their salt content is so high. They got a high blood pressure. They got unhealthy body. And that does them no good. Again, this message with salt is, I talk to Christians, you got to be enough. You can't be too little, you can't be too much. You're unhealthy if you are. But you can't throw the salt completely in the garbage. And there is no salt substitute for the Christian. There are perverted Bibles out there, modern Bibles. They are not the King James Bible. They are modern salt substitute. They may be good, but you know what? They're not the real thing. There's only a few things I will buy by brand name. There's a toilet paper we buy. We buy it by the brand name because it's got a lot of sheets. It lasts forever. I bought the other ones, and it don't work. It may be fluffier, but you know what? It don't work like the name brand. And there are products I buy. All right, get me the store brand. It's just the same. And you look at the ingredients and the percentage, they're the same. Is when you're going to be a Christian, if you're going to say, all right, what kind of Christian am I? Am I salty? Well, that's wrong. Are you sugary? That's wrong. You got to have a balance. And that balance deals with what subject you are. Now, you got a lost person. Don't scream hellfire damnation. But include that saltiness. Salt is a preservative. Back in the olden days when there was no refrigeration, they would salt the meat to preserve it. Well, you're to take salt to the lost people. You're to preserve them. You are to take the salt to the lost people and put that hellfire out of them. Being a Christian is not being likable, but you don't want to be hateful. You want to do what's right. And what's right for a Christian to do is to be 50% nutritious. Not 49, 1%, or 1% and 49. You got to be right there from a scale from 0 to 10, number 5. And yes, Jesus got people angry, and he got people who loved him. And he got the same message across. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And usually those that hated him was those that took the message for the wrong context. This is too salty. This is too sugary. That's how you taste it. A lost man does not know what saltiness tastes like, but anger and fire and frustration. The hellfire damnation preaching. Well, that hellfire damnation preaching got people saved. That sugary lollipop messages would not have worked then. Today, you need a kind of a sugary message. But you can't be too worldly either. You got to have that balance. And that balance you got to learn is by your diet. If your balance ain't diet and when the food you eat, you're not going to be balanced as a Christian. You got to say when no, yes, it's allowable, but this much. You ever see anybody take French fries and just like, you want any more salt with those fries? See, the devil makes things that are tasting good that are unhealthy. And God makes things that don't taste good healthy. Salt is one of those things, it tastes good in the right mixture. The gospel and preaching is good in the right preservation, presentation to the people. Know what your nutrients are as a Christian and come up with them properly.